The weight of my emotions was almost unbearable. I found myself questioning everything. Was I wrong to feel betrayed? Could I be overreacting, or had my wife crossed a line that would forever change how I saw her? My heart ached, not just from the discovery, but from the crushing realization of what had unfolded in secret. We'd been married for 3 blissful years, years filled with love, laughter, and a shared vision of life that I believed we were both on the same page about. Clara, my wonderful Clara, the woman I loved deeply, had always been my everything. But there was this one thing we had never seen eye to eye on: children. I had told her from the very beginning, clearly and with no hesitation, that I didn't want them. She had agreed, and I assumed that was the end of it. But then, a year and a half into our marriage, she brought it up again. The topic of kids. It wasn't a confrontation, not really, it was more of an offhand question, like she was testing the waters. I told her again, in no uncertain terms, that I wasn't interested in having children. She paused, hummed, and then we both went on with our day as if it was no big deal. I didn't think much of it. We were both still deeply in love, enjoying life as it was, taking all the necessary precautions when it came to our sex life, her with the implant, me with condoms. We had a clear understanding. I had no reason to doubt that things were as they should be. Then came the day when I ordered a new bookshelf for our home. It wasn't an urgent need, but I thought it would be a nice surprise to build it for her and fill it with her books. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a simple thing I could do to brighten her day. As I started organizing the books, flipping through them, one in particular caught my eye. It was an old journal of hers, something she'd kept all through college. A smile crept across my face as I remembered how she used to carry it around with her. It wasn't just a notebook. It was a vision board, a planning tool where she sketched out her dreams, her goals, her aspirations. If there was something she wanted, she wrote it down, meticulously, with cutouts and pictures. It was her way of manifesting the future she imagined. I remembered when she'd first shown me that journal back in college, telling me about her dreams of getting her doctorate. The way she laid out her goals with such precision, it was nothing short of impressive. We were only sophomores, and yet she seemed to have life figured out, while I felt like I was just going along with the flow. That journal was a symbol of her drive, her ambition, her clarity. I had always admired her for it. But as I flipped through it that day, I wasn't prepared for what I found. It wasn't just a relic from the past, it was a part of Clara I hadn't expected to see. A section dedicated to pregnancy. A section devoted to preparing for a child. She'd researched prenatal vitamins, local OBGYNs, even included pictures of cradles. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a fleeting thought or a casual interest, it was real. She wanted kids. The realization hit me like a freight train. She had kept this from me. For all these months, she had silently hoped for something I had explicitly told her I didn't want. Was this her way of telling me she had changed her mind? That she was secretly aching for something I had always said no to? The emotions surged within me, anger, confusion, guilt, and I couldn't stand it. I confronted her as soon as I could. The moment she walked in the door, I didn't waste a second. I needed answers. I needed to understand what had been going on inside her heart. I asked her over and over, demanding to know the truth. Was this something she truly wanted? Was I the reason she had sacrificed her own dreams, her own desires? Clara, ever the diplomat, assured me that she didn't want children, that she wanted our relationship more than anything. But I wasn't convinced. If children weren't truly a deal breaker, then why had she kept this secret from me? Why had she written it down in such detail? And then, just when I thought the conversation couldn't get any worse, she dropped a bombshell. Clara had gotten an abortion. A year and a half ago. She had kept this from me, hadn't told me a word. She said it so matter-of-factly, as if it should have been a relief to me. Like the secret she'd kept was the proof she needed to show me that not having children wasn't a deal-breaker. But in that moment, I felt everything unravel. I was in shock, consumed with an anger I couldn't explain. I felt as if my entire world had shifted beneath me, leaving me adrift in the storm of my own emotions. I didn't hurt her, physically, but my anger came out in a way that I regretted deeply. I yelled, I screamed. I couldn't stop. How could she have made such a monumental decision without consulting me? Without talking to me? How could I have been so blind? I hadn't even noticed anything was wrong. I hadn't seen the signs, the emotional and physical toll something like that would have on her. How could I have missed that? I left. I couldn't stay there, not in the same space, not with that weight hanging over us. I went to stay with my sister for a while, needing space to clear my head, to process everything. But all I felt was guilt. I didn't want to go back to Clara, not in this state, not with so much unresolved anger. I didn't want to hurt her again. And yet, even now, as I stay with my sister, I can't stop thinking about what's next. What should I do? How do I approach her? How do I make this right? She keeps everything, old journals, sketchbooks, memories, all piled together in the same area. That's where I found the book, tucked in among the clutter. Some might say I should have gotten a vasectomy, but that's a conversation I'm not diving into here. However, I did discuss it thoroughly with Clara before we ever tied the knot. Our reasons for not wanting children aligned at the time, but, over the years, I guess hers started to shift. How exactly I turned into this villainous figure, the one who apparently refuses to hear her out, is beyond me. But I guess that's Reddit for you, right? People can spin things however they want. The truth is, I didn't get the vasectomy because I'm not sure that I won't want kids 10 or 15 years from now. I know for a fact that I don't want them right now. I'm 27, and I'm at peace with that. But who knows how I'll feel down the road? Things change. Sure, a vasectomy is marketed as permanent, but, in the back of my mind, I knew the reversal wouldn't be covered by my insurance. And the whole idea of locking myself into something I wasn't sure I'd want forever didn't sit right. Clara and I were being careful, taking every precaution to avoid pregnancy. She got on birth control long before we even started having sex. It wasn't something I had any input on. From what I know, she's happy with it. The implant alone brings the pregnancy risk to less than 1%, and using condoms on top of it only lowers the chances further. We both agreed on all of this. We decided that a vasectomy wasn't necessary, given our situation. But still, someone, somewhere, had the nerve to claim that by not getting the vasectomy, I was somehow guaranteeing an unexpected pregnancy. A 0.5% chance isn't a guarantee. It's a chance, nothing more. Are people forgetting that vasectomies aren't 100% effective either? There's no such thing as complete certainty, unless you're aiming for abstinence, and I don't want to hear any more of that noise. We also don't take chances with our intimacy. We don't go raw unless we're both on the same page, and I would never push her into that. Then there's this accusation, you verbally abused her. Clara and I both grew up in households where yelling was the norm. Raised by combative parents who shouted at every opportunity. After that, we both agreed we didn't want that in our relationship. So no, I've never raised my voice at her, until now. I'm usually the quieter one, and I imagine it must have shocked her to see me so angry. She doesn't handle yelling well at all. It wasn't the words I said that stung, it was the tone, the frustration in my voice. Should I have raised my voice? No! But I'm not perfect. I'm human. I wasn't being abusive. The whole point of mentioning that I wouldn't lay a hand on her was to make sure the situation didn't get twisted into something it wasn't. But clearly, it didn't come across that way. That argument? It was heated. Both of us throwing things back and forth. It was the worst fight we've had in nearly a decade of being together. But, compared to what other people go through, maybe it wasn't so bad. That could be me being a little skewed, given my childhood. But it's the truth as I see it. Leaving her for a week and a half makes you a jerk. Let's clear this up. I didn't just abandon her. It was a mutual decision. After that argument, I told her I needed space to think. She suggested I take that space outside of the house. Sure, she wasn't exactly thrilled about it, but we just finished yelling at each other. I stayed at my sister's place, and we kept in touch the entire time. It wasn't dramatic. The conversations were dull, mundane, nothing more than checking in. Did you eat? Did you shower? Just surface-level exchanges. But we were still talking. No, we didn't continue the discussion about the fight. We both needed time to cool off. We agreed that we needed to gather ourselves before diving back into that conversation. Sometimes, it just takes me a bit longer to get there. As for the comment about Clara being bedridden after an abortion, that was insensitive. I based my assumption on what I'd heard and seen in other people's experiences, thinking it was just like a bad period. I admit it was wrong. The debate about that response was split. Half of you said I was being heartless, and half thought I was overreacting. Once again, Reddit does its thing. But when it comes to the emotional impact, I still can't agree with what's being said. At the time, I honestly didn't think Clara truly wanted an abortion. Based on her stance on having kids, I imagined she'd feel the same loss and grief as someone who's miscarried. That's where my mind was, and that's how I reacted. The only thing that could change my perspective now is Clara herself. And then the advice: you need couples counseling. We've both been in therapy, individually, for years. I'm not sure how much couples therapy would add to that, but I'm not against the idea. Some of you feel that asking about whether I want kids was enough, that she shouldn't owe me any more than that. I'm going to have to disagree. As the father of the child, I should have known she was pregnant before any decisions were made about an abortion. We weren't separated at that time. I wasn't cheating. I wasn't abusive. I deserve to know what's going on with my family planning, and I expect her to consult with me, just as I would do for her in the same situation. If you think that's controlling, I don't care. Asking about children is one thing. Terminating a pregnancy is a whole different conversation. I'm on my way home now, and I'll update once things settle, probably within the week. I don't expect many of you to be rooting for me. But I'm okay with that. I've edited this because I didn't want to overwhelm anyone with paragraphs full of text. So, yeah. Final update for now. The morning after I made my initial post, I came home, and Clara and I dove into a long conversation. Both of us, still reeling from the mess we'd made, took responsibility for letting everything spiral out of control. We apologized for stepping out of character, for letting emotions run wild. I started by explaining why I left in the first place. I needed space to clear my head, but more than anything, I needed to acknowledge how my actions had hurt her. Raising my voice, especially when she's so sensitive to it, was the first thing I had to address. I could see the hurt in her eyes, and she forgave me. We both agreed that as long as we kept our emotions in check moving forward, we'd be okay. But she was more curious than anything about what had been going through my head during my absence. I had been gone for longer than usual, and she wanted to know why. We take breaks when things get too heated, but this was the first time I physically removed myself. The separation, however, wasn't a sign of abandoning her. It was to ensure that I didn't say anything I regret. I told her about what had been weighing on me. The journal. The unexpected feelings I had after reading her entry. At that moment, I wasn't angry. Confused? Yes. But above all, I was anxious. How could she be writing about wanting children when we had made it so clear, together, that we were both committed to a child-free life? She downplayed it, explaining that not everything written down is something she truly desires. Some things, she said, were simply fantasies, not things she ever expected to come true. I wasn't convinced. The journal wasn't just a few scattered thoughts. It was carefully written, meticulously planned out. It was hard for me to let that go. The last thing I wanted was for her to secretly resent me for the life she felt she couldn't have. She assured me that wasn't the case, but even then, a part of me still wasn't sure. The discussion about the abortion was difficult for both of us. I wanted to know if she had been in pain, what I had missed, anything that would have given me a clue. I didn't pry into the procedure itself, but we spent hours discussing her emotions, how she felt afterward, and the reasoning behind her decision to keep it all to herself. I held her close, listening to every word. But inside, I was hurting too. It turns out, the second time Clara asked me about kids, it had been a month or two after she had already gone through with the procedure. She had been questioning whether or not to tell me. In the end, she kept it from me. She told me that the day she took the pills, I was right there with her. I remembered the day well. She had been crying, and I didn't know why. When I asked, she said it was just cramps, so I got her a heating pad and laid down with her, thinking it was just a rough period. But looking back now, I should have realized something was wrong. Her cramps had never been that bad. But I'm glad, at least, she didn't face it alone. Later on, I asked her why she hadn't come to me when she found out she was pregnant. She explained she was protecting me. Protecting our relationship. She didn't want to burden me with the weight of choosing between what I wanted and what she felt was best for her. I couldn't wrap my head around it. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like she had shut me out. She chose to go through it alone, and in doing so, she communicated that she didn't trust me to handle the truth. It felt like a betrayal, but worse than that, it made me question everything. If she didn't trust me in something like this, where did that leave us? I asked her over and over if I had ever given her any reason to doubt me. Doubt my commitment to her. She said no. But that didn't make it easier to understand. How could she protect me from something that was so important to us both, without thinking about what it did to our trust? She admitted she was afraid that anything she said might change how I saw her, or how I saw our relationship. But how could I differentiate between insecurity and reasonable doubt? I asked her if she knew how much I loved her, how far I'd go to make her happy. She laughed a little, remembering something I said during our wedding vows. I was taken aback. She remembered, word for word, a part of those vows I thought she might have forgotten. We shifted the conversation to lighter memories, to promises made, to times in our relationship where trust wasn't just a word, but something we lived. It helped. For a moment, the tension lifted, and we ended the night on a better note. We're okay now. Not where we were before, but we're getting there. Everything is still raw. Our emotions, our minds, everything. We both cried just 5 minutes into our conversation. It wasn't easy. Clara's against couples counseling for now, and I'm unsure. We're still figuring things out on our own. I'm not sure if a third party could add anything that we haven't already discussed. But I'm open to it if we decide we need help. We're not leaving each other. Not yet. We both still feel the love, even if things are complicated right now. That much is clear. As for the future, Clara and I agreed on a new rule. No more week-long stays at my sister's. The distance between the top and bottom floors of our house is the most either of us is allowed. We need space, but not too much. If things get too tense, we can't be apart for more than 48 hours. Thank you for reading, for following along with our journey. If you haven't already, please subscribe to stay updated.